All right, guys. Well, we are back, and this is Valley Town for those of you just tuning in. I'm ChanManV, and I'm joined here by Reynad and Noxious. And it's time to talk about net decking. And net decking, net decking. This is actually a topic that Noxious wanted to bring up on the show. Kind of net decking, I guess, versus deck building. And we do have, some Ray I think is one of the deck builders we have in the community here. You coming out with different ones. You coming up with every single deck in the community. No, but I think it'd be a pretty good discussion here, and just really talking about the prevalence of net decking. I guess is it affecting innovation? Is it affecting what we see at the top of the ladder? And just this kind of I'd say dullness, just having the same 5 decks at the top of Legend every single season. It's prevalent like every single season, right? Is this because of net decking, or is this just the nature of the game? And Noxious, I'll have you start off actually, since you wanted to bring this up.
Yeah, well, I mean, I brought the topic mostly as like a general discussion tool because I don't have anything against net decking. Like, I don't mind net decks. I think it's absolutely normal and natural to have it be a thing. The only issue that I might have with the way like the deck building in Hearthstone occurs is it's probably got more to do with the way in which you're not incentivized really to try out new stuff. Like there's no format right now, like tournament wise, where you really get to change your deck or understand your deck to the point where you can tech it yourself. That's one of the things that I find super interesting in, let's say, Magic, right? Like when you make your sideboard, you modify a few cards here and there.
Yep.
I keep going back to Magic as a great example, but like you need to understand your deck inside out before you can even bring it to a tournament, for the most part at least. And I feel like in Hearthstone, that's not always the case, since there's no room for you to, have to deck build on the fly and make a mistake on that front. And for ladder purposes, like we have a pretty diverse meta right now. Well, okay, I guess we did like 2 weeks ago, or like maybe like 3 weeks ago, and then it seems like it's kind of reverted back to the like a lot of the LOE cards, League of Explorers, got phased out, and we're back to like pre-expansion, a pre-expansion meta, which is kind of interesting. But I don't know, like the net decking portion doesn't bother me. It's the fact that there's little deck building and little reason to deck build, really, because it feels like if you're not like taking a specific skeleton of a deck to start with, then your matchups again, like a single card, say a really punishing card like Dr. Boom will simply wreck you. Like it doesn't matter what fun deck you're playing. Stuff like that usually just comes out. I don't know.
Okay, Ray, how about you?
What exactly do you guys mean when you say like net decking? You mean like
a deck list, I guess, from like another player or online that you found?
like online, like what kind of websites?
Yeah, like Tempo Storm.
Like Tempo Storm, where I can go to get legendary. Like I mean, I go there every day, so I see a lot of net deckers. It's a pretty good website. Like I bought some of their shirts.
Yeah, exactly.
But what if you can only afford 90% of the retail price? All right, so I think
use the code Tempo.
You can use code Tempo.
Doing shout outs early today, man.
Right,
well done.
Yeah, so the thing with net decking, like Hearthstone is pretty much based on the same resource system that Richard Garfield made when he designed Magic in 1991. And that's like a day and age when the internet wasn't really taken into account at all when it comes to a card game. The whole concept of like a metagame and different deck archetypes constantly fluctuating among a group of people also wasn't really something that was taken into account when designing card games as we know them today. That's just kind of something that developed eventually because of the tournament system. And I think that card games are now existing in this day and age when like information is so quickly accessible that like it's how do I put it? Like
what Reynad says is it's an outdated genre.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's just like it doesn't make it any less fun, like chess is an old game. It's just in this case, like the internet takes a huge part of the skill out of the game. I mean, I know when I started Hearthstone, nobody knew how to play the game. Like people thought Iron Beak Owl was the best card in the game. so many like broken cards were unplayable. You know, like people thought Water Elemental was unplayable. People thought like Doomguard is unplayable. So many cards that we see today everywhere, like people just didn't think were good. Force of Nature Savage Roar, nobody thought was playable.
Yeah,
Like,
that's been around forever. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like the reason to play the class. People didn't think either of those cards were good. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it had a lot to do because it's funny that you bring the like that specific combo up because we had a bit of a discussion about it, and I feel like in alpha that combo was played everywhere. Just it took forever for Strife Crow to bring it.
Starcraft
Weird.
didn't.
He didn't even bring it.
No,
Actually.
that's not how
I
it
remember Strife
happened.
Crow built a deck. I mean, he didn't start it
No,
because
he didn't start it for sure.
No, what happened
No, no.
with combo is at first nobody played it for the longest
Yeah.
time. Strifecrow designed the early Druid decks with no combo,
The
like
Yetis and everything.
Pyromancer and Claw to deal with Blood Imp, stuff like that. And then Strifecrow made like, you know, lists with Sun Fury as a tempo card and just like, you know, he polished all the lists. But, you know, Kayuki started popularizing the combo among like the whole, whatever the pre-Cloud9 team was called, Doghouse or something.
No,
yeah.
it was Liquid Value. Kiyuki was on Liquid Value. But,
Okay, yeah. So Kiki had single combo, one Force, one Roar.
Mhm.
And then Reynad, first tournament player to start playing double combo.
double combo.
And then the first tournament win with double combo was
The DreamHack?
DreamHack Summer, where
yeah.
it blew up. Everyone was playing double combo DreamHack Summer.
Mhm.
But yeah, anyway, that's like the history of. I'm always really, I don't know. I always care a lot about the history of those things. But anyway, net decking, right? So this is the thing with net decking. I think like the major problem with it is that it basically makes a game feel stale, even though it's not stale at all. Like we play a million games on ladder, and it's like you'll lose to this like anything can happen deck, and you're like, oh whoa, that was kind of cool. Where do you find this? And you look on Twitch, and it's like, oh, you see all these streamers playing different anything decks, and you find a bunch of deck lists online, and then like in your mind you've played like, you know, 3 games against this what should be a ridiculous deck. It's a control paladin deck with like 3 mana 3/3 Murlocs, but you're like already like, oh, it's another one of these.
This is boring. Yeah, you're already jaded.
Because you know every card in his deck, and you're like, oh, another one of these unoriginal kids, even though the deck's been played for 2 days. Like just because information travels that fast, it basically makes you feel like a metagame is stale, even though it's not stale at all. Like, and maybe just like pull up like the snapshot right now, for example, is just like a reasonably accurate example of stuff that's played. You can see that like 8 out of 9 classes are represented in the top 2 tiers. Everything except Hunter has at least a tier 2 deck, and then Hunter's in tier 3. Whereas you look at the metagame like a year ago, there were only like 4 playable classes or 3 playable classes at all. So it's like ridiculous how much variety there is right now, and all these decks are wildly different. Like for the most part, Blizzard's done a great job of making sure that every class has multiple archetypes that are viable. The balance is like reasonably good. There's just certain neutral cards in the way of that. Cards like Mysterious Challenger are totally fine, to be honest. It's like Haunted Creeper and Shredder are the problems with that deck.
Is the rest, yeah, exactly. Is the supporting tools around it that make it completely unbearable on tempo.
So they basically like, I don't know. You've never seen this much variety, but still the game feels stale just because of how fast information travels for a card game in 2016. And like Blizzard, if Blizzard was super, super progressive with card games, if they threw out every single like old notion about card games out the window and they were like doing, you know, patch up, like balance updates every 2 weeks, not even balance updates, but just like patching some existing cards every 2 weeks, and they were releasing like
a few cards.
A few cards every week. Like taking a really modern approach of like, okay, well, these guys digest content very fast, let's give it to them. That'd be great for the players that play a lot, but then, you know, they also have to take into account the people who like log in once every 2 months. And if those people log in, they're like, oh my god, 200 cards came out since I've logged in, this is too much, this is overwhelming. And then those people feel like if they ever stop playing, they just can't get back in. So they want to avoid that too. Like, so there's, I don't know, designing card games is a complicated thing, and you just have to create this like ecosystem that makes sense for everybody, and not just like this vocal 1% of streamers and redditors and stuff. So
I mean, I would love that, you know, just being someone that plays every day if they release it like that. But from the standpoint of sales, they have to sell like blocks of things. That's why things come out in expansions or adventure modes, and there's pricing for those things. Otherwise, you'd have to like subscribe to Hearthstone, and then like each month, and you get these new cards each month, or some kind of weird thing like that. Or it's just like you have to continually buy packs, and that would be somewhat wasteful too, or at least it would feel very unsatisfying having to just try to get 5 cards when you have like all the other cards.
We've talked about this before, but I guess like one of the ways you could tackle that is by giving people the option to play certain, like, there's been like clunky tournaments, you don't get to play with like pauper, right? Like pauper tourneys. Like if you have a specific subset of cards, then you can play those in a given environment where those cards kind of make sense, and you're not necessarily hindered by your lack of a collection. I guess Arena kind of acts as that format. Community run tourneys could do that. There's the possibility of not playing with certain sets as well, which we kind of talked about like that in the past, but that's one of the other ways you can do this to refresh things up, where you don't necessarily have to have the new cards, or rather not collect the older ones, depending on how you make the format work. So it could be kind of cool, like a custom lobby. Again, same idea keeps coming back, but you tick certain expansions that are allowed and some that aren't. So I could let people do what they want.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like,
just the kind of a bucketed system, I guess you could say.
Yeah. All right.
I think we'll eventually get to that point. I have a feeling it might be happening in sometime in the near future. Don't know for sure, but we're definitely getting to the point of Hearthstone where I think things needs to be partitioned. Like some of the card sets and things like that, or figuring out how we can not alienate just all the new players, and just have that's been a big discussion of recently too, which we don't have on the topic list today, but just talking about just new players getting in, right? I've seen even just high profile people asking on Twitter, hey, is it it's like, which expansion should I get, or how hard is it to get started in Hearthstone, and then a lot of high profile people answer, and unfortunately some of the answers is it's very difficult right now, unless you want to like really spend a lot of money right off the bat. And some people can, but most people are not going to be willing to do that. That's like a daunting wall, like a blocker right now for Hearthstone.
Yeah.
And we really need to do something about that. And there's a lot of different options. I'm sure that's a huge topic right now within Blizzard. So I'm really interested to see what it's going to be for us, for the 3 of us. Like, that doesn't matter, right? Because we're always going to be just caught up.
Yeah, like up to date, I guess. But like I mean, like onwards to the topic of like net decking and deck building, I also want to touch on the distinction you have to make, I guess, between somebody who deck builds a lot and somebody who kind of just tweaks. Kalinto's a great example, I feel, of a really exceptional tweaker. Just saying as well is like he's an incredible tech player. It's really insane. So like you have these players that just build decks, like initial drafts of them, and then other players take those and just spin them 20,000 ways, and suddenly you end up with a really refined list. And sometimes it goes through phases where you go from handlock to demon handlock to mid-range demon lock down to like demon zoo, like that just keeps curving up. And it's just this process where you end up with different tiers of the same stuff. And they don't look different, like at first glance, if you're not experienced at all, but they really are. Like the way they play, what they're trying to do, when they go all in, when they decide to play defensively, aggressively. So there's a lot of, I guess, subtleties that a player who casually plays Hearthstone won't pick up on, which I think might also lead to that like idea that, man, all the decks are the same. Like even Secret Valley's got like 4 different types of decks that were tried out during its inception, since its inception that is, and you still encounter like any of those variants at any moment, which is kind of cool.
Definitely, yeah. But I think just at the end of the day, there's like a lot more variety in Hearthstone right now than there has been in a long time.
Yeah.
People just don't feel that way just because of how quickly information travels, like after the first time you've seen something online, even if you've never played against it on ladder, the first time you play against it, like the thought in your mind is like, it's not, oh cool, this new deck. Your thought is like, oh, one of these net decking kids, I've seen this already. I know everything there is to know about it.
That's depressing.
No,
All
I
right.
mean,
That's kind of the issue with net decking. And yeah, I don't know what Blizzard can do to fix that. That's the problem. It's
yeah.
hard.
And another thing too is just that there's a lot of perceptions. A lot of people obviously watch streamers, and a lot of the streamers, tend to be high ranked in Legend too. And what you see at high Legend is definitely not the same as what you see. I don't know, between ranks 1 and 5, 5 and 10 or whatever. And I think in that range, pre-Legend, I think you see a ton of variety. Like I don't think there's nearly as many secret paladins in that range as there is in Legend, or at least the higher ranks of Legend.
It's the other way
I don't know
around.
about
You
that.
think
Rank
so?
1 through
Yeah,
5
I was gonna
is
say,
way
wow,
better
because
decks than Legend.
Wow, okay, because
The
I don't.
Legend,
the
high
client is
Legend
giving me
especially,
ulcers.
that's where all the weird stuff is. Like,
Okay.
that's what you don't know what you'll play at high Legend.
High
Rank 1
Legend,
through
true.
5
Yeah.
is like literally the meta snapshot. Literally those decks.
Okay. Yeah, just because there's net decking's more prevalent, I guess, at that
Yeah,
point.
it's like less people trying to be creative. It's also lots of people trying to make that final push for Legend, so they just want to play
Yeah, just
stuff
play a
that's
good one.
tried and true and safe. On top of that, like the
Yeah.
whole star system and the Legend system are completely different in the types of decks they incentivize. Like you would rather play a lower win percentage deck that has games that are twice as fast in like rank
True.
1 through 5.
Yeah.
Whereas in Legend, you don't really care how fast your games are. You just purely care about the win loss ratio. So it's like two completely different ladder systems in all together in one like terrible ladder system. And
Oh, you
man.
hybridize
No,
everything.
those are definitely good points. Yeah.
I like the way you're putting it though.
Altogether, a terrible ladder system. Net decking. One other point too is that you mentioned it a little bit earlier, Ray, where you feel like it removes a large part of the game. You know what I mean? Like whenever the whole deck building aspect of it, I think is very undervalued because of it. Just information spreads so much, and this is prevalent in all games. I think that's been one of the negatives of just the internet and information sharing. Like I'll throw out another game like StarCraft. Like build orders used to be the thing in StarCraft, and sure you could learn somebody's build order kind of, right, if you played them. If you played them like 50 times or something, 20 times, you could kind of learn build orders, but it's not as easy as just looking at replay and then you instantly know their build orders, and that sucks because build orders as well as deck building are a huge, it's a talent too, and it's a talent that's not valued, or at least it's not given enough value, and it's a big part of the game that unfortunately when it comes to the competitive scene now, it's just kind of thrown away. It's just like you just wait. That's what a lot of players do.
Figured out.
I'm just gonna
Yeah.
wait. I'm just gonna wait until somebody comes out with something cool, and I'll just learn how to play it as well as I can possibly play it and win tournaments. And
Remember that seven roach rush? Good lord. Like back in
Back in the day, yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy when it got figured out. It was like, oh god.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like if we were somehow playing an online game without the internet, their skill would be so much more readily apparent, where like the best player in a tournament would win like 95% of the time, I think. Whereas right now the best player in an 8-player tournament will win like 30% of the time at most. Yeah, I think it would be really cool, but I think at the end of the day, what it pertains to Hearthstone specifically is Blizzard isn't going to make the internet go away. And Hearthstone is just a very archaic type of game. Even though it's a great game, it's just a really old type of game. And you're going to have to adapt in very... It's not a matter of like, oh, let's take this paper card game and then throw it online and let's incorporate some abilities like Avenging Wrath that would be too cumbersome with dice to do in real life. Like that's cool to start with. That'll get people to play your game because there's no competition in the online card space. But like they have to make, in my opinion, they have to really push it basically because of the existence of net decking should basically change how Hearthstone is built, because
Exactly. It should be worked around it pretty much.
Yeah. We're seeing a little bit of it with Discover. It's like we always talk about RNG and stuff like that, but Discover does change. It's a little bit of situational things, right? That it's different from game to game. Like you're gonna get different card selections. Sometimes you'll get PO, like power overwhelming from peddlers. Sometimes it's I don't know, it's like Priestess or something, right?
Let's
But
give Warlocks more bad one drops. Like I can't stand this PO Soulfire anymore, man.
exactly, yeah,
This is
exactly.
it. They need some really bad one drops.
Yeah.
We got the only one drop they've gotten in the past like ever since basic set is Reliquary
Yeah,
Seeker.
exactly.
Yeah. And that one's not even that bad. That one's pretty good too.
Well,
Yeah.
it
Depending
was
on when
pretty
you get
bad.
it.
Also, Dashingly Handsome streamer made it pretty okay.
That's true.
I don't know that guy,
That's true.
but I heard he's got a really good website for Netdecking.
Mm.
Yeah, thank God for that guy, man. Gormok and really quick, both of those.
Oh god.
All right, well, let's see. Next thing, let's see, we can discuss is design. So we've been kind of talking about just a little bit of design too. So
Yeah.
Noxious, another topic I know you actually wrote a blog about, or a vlog about, or no, it's blog, a blog about involving Entombed and how you believe it's negatively impacting control. There's the control archetype.
It's really extreme, right? Like I made a really extreme statement. So for those of you who didn't see it, is like basically in a nutshell, Entomb limits the ability for the metagame to ever turn into like a control meta. Thing is that like the way I look at Hearthstone's like control, like the definition we have of control in Hearthstone is completely different from the one you'd have in other card games. Because in other card games, I can control you on your turn. In Hearthstone, that doesn't really happen that much, which makes the whole point about having initiative really, really important. And when I look at Entomb, I look at a card that says, with 30 card slots and the ability to only have 2 copies of given cards in my deck, legendaries, only one ofs, I can have 2 copies of something that I really like if you're playing it as well. And I can also remove something from the board, which effectively acts as a sap, but it's a really expensive one. But in a control meta, and I'm speaking like strictly control meta, I'm not talking about, oh yes, we've got druids running around and punching you in the face. Entomb is like, it's good, but it's not going to be game winning necessarily. But like in a control meta game, a card like Entomb just gives priests way too much additional threats, removal. It's like an all-in-one, and I think it kind of like, I guess you could lose control warrior matchup if they just decide to tank up and turtle until you die to fatigue. But it's just one of those cards that seems like it's stifling all the classes besides warrior to play control. It's just odd. I don't know.
Ray, thoughts?
It's just weird.
Yeah, I mean it's probably like the best card in the game in control mirrors, for sure. But I don't know what it really limits. I don't. You're still gonna play your Tyrion and Paladin. You're still gonna like play big minions. There's always gonna be. There's always gonna be like some kind of late game limitation. Like I remember really early on, like maybe a year and a half ago, like a card like Ysera basically I decided would never see play because like if Ysera ever caught on, then you could just play Faceless Manipulator and beat every Ysera deck. And if the metagame was like too fast, you couldn't play Ysera in the first place. So it's like the metagame's either fast or people play Faceless. In like both cases, you can't really play Ysera. So like for example, with the Priest argument, it's like, okay, either the metagame's like too fast for my slow Priest deck to like be that good, or if the metagame slows down, then Entomb's going to kill big minions. Like what I'm saying is like I think yes, it's a good control card, but that's all it really is. Like Priest could use something good, and if it's not going to be a 2-drop, then it might as well be that thing.
Yeah. I mean, Priest, if you guys remember, Priest,
Oh, no.
we had mind control back in the day, right? That was ridiculously cheap.
Well, yeah,
And
that
was
that
was the broken card. But at least with Entombed, we have to still spend mana. It is a removal, but do have to spend mana. It is super strong though. Entomb it's one of my favorite. I mean, I've been playing so much Priest, so it's definitely one of my favorite cards from League.
Yeah. I think like my issue with it is that if Blizzard ever decides to, like, I don't want to put it that way, but like slow down the meta where the goal is not to kill somebody from 30 in one turn, or to have like a crazy amount of burst, then you have to get stuff that sticks on the board. And the moment you do that, then Priest just punishes you for even thinking of doing that. Like I feel like there's many cases in which if they're trying to remove combos that deal an unreasonable, unfun amount of damage to face, which they've tried to do in the past, and it's got a lot to do with charge being what it is, then Priest when those like I guess philosophy changes to the design comes in, when they come in, then Entomb becomes somewhat problematic because it's like too much control, I guess, in one class. It's kind of like capping where you can make a control deck or what a control deck can be. But I don't know. Maybe I'm blowing it like out of proportions because there is, I guess, Murloc Paladin that came out and is basically shutting down priests pretty hard if they get.
Oh gosh, tell me
if
about
they
it.
get it. Yeah, you really
like,
can't do much. Like Entomb won't help
auto
you.
loss.
Like it's funny because I got a match where I double entombed,
The war
I
leaders.
entombed 2 Murlocs from their deck,
Yeah.
right? And I still died. Like I
Well,
still.
you have to
died.
get the right ones. Like, yeah, you still die if you leave the war leaders. If you can get the
They will
bluegills,
kill
which is impossible, they always just jam them with the instance they play them.
Sure.
But if you can get the 2 bluegills, then it's an easy game. But you never get the 2 bluegills. So if you're lucky, you get the 2 war leaders, and still you can die. Even
Dude,
with
I've had a
all that
paladin
charge.
go war leader pyro equality.
Yeah.
Just to guarantee like they don't let you take it. They know what
Yeah.
you're gonna do. So
Yeah, so I think Entomb.
Sorry, go
Right
ahead.
now, I don't think it's that problematic, but maybe in the future, I could see it being an issue. I mean, it is essentially it is 6 mana though, so it's not like crazy like a sap, which is incredible for tempo because you can play behind it too, play something very strong behind it. But in Tomb right now, it's like when I run into like a control war, one of you guys mentioned, like with just any kind of a fatigue-ish type of deck or a deck that doesn't give you that many things to entomb, then the priest, like any kind of build that you have for the priest is pretty weak, right? It relies on tempo. It relies on entombed, right, to get cards. It's kind of like Thoughtsteal used to be too. Priests generally always relied on being reactive and using your opponent's stuff with Sylvanas and Thoughtsteal. It's still somewhat like that, except for the dragon one. So yeah, I don't know. I think Entomb could be definitely a problem. And like I think you do have a point that it could be a problem in the future. All right, charge. That's another thing that we want to talk about. Charge is a recurrent, and you brought up anything can happen. That's obviously a charge base, but there's been some talk on Reddit too about is it really charge that's a problem, or is it actually taunt not being strong enough? Is that the problem? So wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it, Ray. What's your initial thoughts on I guess that?
Yeah, like the defensive cards in the game just generally suck. Like for the classic set, taunts were really, really underpowered. Like Ancient of War has terrible stats for 7 mana.
Yeah,
but it was still saw a ton of play in just classic Hearthstone, to the point where like Black Knight was like in most decks, just because it was like the only option for taunt. So and then Belcher came out, which changed everything because that card was like you're kind of free rolling taunt almost. Like it was just such a good card stat for stat that you weren't losing too much off the numbers in order to get taunt, and it was so good against combo, just getting the 2 taunts. So like, and that completely changed the meta to the point where like even the aggressive decks are playing Belcher, like the hunters are playing Belcher and everything. So
even Deathlord sometimes.
yeah.
And some janky lists, yeah.
Basically, like I agree with that. I think taunts, not just taunts, but I think taunts and AoE are both very underpowered in Hearthstone, and those are the 2 things I wish would be stronger. Like the 2 best AoE cards in the game are both in Warlock, I would say, which is like Hellfire, Shadowflame, except unless you want to count cards like Equality, which
Nether, I guess, if you want to put it that. Like Nether's a really like
it's expensive. Nether's too expensive.
Yeah. AoE is like
if it was
Unleash,
exactly.
Holy Nova, Consecration. That's AoE.
Yeah.
Flurry. Like, yeah. I think like it needs to get better. Like AoE across the board needs to be better. Like everything should be as good as Hellfire,
Yeah.
Cards
Excavated
when
Evil
you're
was like
playing-
a nice attempt, right?
What was that?
Excavated Evil was kind of like a nice attempt at Blizzard to give like a non-gimmick AoE for Priest, but with Light Bomb already in line, it felt like kind of difficult to weave in sometimes. Yeah, well, I mean, people have tried it, but
so I just think the game needs more AoE. It's like Light Bomb is almost good enough. It's just AoE needs to be like a little bit broken, you know. Hearthstone has this issue where it's like if you just keep initiative and you have some burst finish in your deck,
Yep.
like
Yep.
you're going to win the game. So it's like if AoE is going to be like Twisting Nether or Light Bomb and it's going to take your entire turn to clear the board, it's going to cost you all of your mana, then whoever has initiative is just going to play a threat again and you're in the same position the next turn. So it's like, what at that point, like, why does a card like Light Bomb exist in the game? Like, you literally just, it did nothing. Like, you played it and then a turn later it's the same board state, and that's unfortunately that's how. Yes, of course, Light Bomb is very important in like the games that Priest wins. Of course, sometimes it's game deciding, but like I'm just saying, like in general, AOE is overpriced in the game, and because of that, you end up with the dominant strategy for the past 2 years just being develop resilient minions, finish them with burst. That's like,
yeah, that is the formula for a top deck for a while
This
now.
has been pretty much it's been the same thing for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's the problem though, is because you can't get like, there's no way to flip the game once you're ahead. That's the issue. And now if there was just like a reset button, you wouldn't just go playing it in every deck, even if it was overpowered, right? Like you wouldn't play a 4-mana Light Bomb in your aggro like tempo mage deck. Probably you wouldn't play that. So it specifically helps control decks to make AoE better, and it would create more interaction because once you reset the game, everyone's on like lower resources on the board again, and it's just like it's slowing the game down and it's making more interaction happen, I think.
Yeah, I think it's also not helping at all that the sticky minions, like there's so many of them, right?
Yep.
Like you wipe a board and there's a second board, and then they can redevelop on top of it. So maybe one part of the equation is minions don't die, as opposed to because maybe the AoE is just fine, except there's just way too many things that never die, and these are the only things that you play, which is funny enough. Either it's stuff that has death rattle or stuff that has so much health that you can't kill it ever.
I feel like the death, you're absolutely right with death rattle. And I feel like was it GVG that introduced all the death rattle minions? Or no, it was it was Naxxramas that did.
Naxxramas, yeah.
And I felt like that was a reaction to thinking that AOE was a bit powerful at the time, like with the flame strikes and the I mean, freeze mage was pretty big back then too. Just that first variant of it with Nova and Doomsayer. And even equality, remember just the humility paladin and just that crazy.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
it was like impossible, right?
Right.
I mean, that control paladin was very strong at the time, and I don't know. I felt like they added a bunch of death rattle, or at least that they chose that time to really put in a lot of the death rattle design in reaction to that. And we're at the opposite point now, where it's just like, oh my God, it's too, the minions are too sticky now. So what do we do, like from the standpoint of removal?
I don't think it's why they added death rattle minions, man.
Okay.
If you remember that, the way that meta was actually the 3 most dominant decks were Zoo, Hunter, mid-range Hunter, and Rogue, like Miracle variants.
Oh, is it that? Okay,
Yeah.
maybe it was
And then
that time.
they created Nax, and the idea is like, okay, well, we don't want Miracle Rogue to have as easy of a time killing all your stuff, and we don't really know how to make minions, so let's just create some neutral 2-drops, but let's make sure they're unplayable in Priest, only good in Warlock.
Oh my God. Okay, all right.
And then that was Naxxramas in a nutshell. And like AoE was never too good in the game ever.
Okay.
It wasn't ever a meta where it was even close to being too good. But I'm just saying, like, yeah, death rattles are an issue or whatever. So on top of like printing less broken ones, you could also just a card like Light Bomb, if it's going to cost 6, it should probably silence the board first, But then that would be bad design because that's really
you can't play anything. Yeah.
Well, it gives you less synergy with things like Power Word Shield that they want Priest to be playing. Light Bomb's a bad example. I mean, just like some other AoE,
like Brawl's a good example of a board wipe to me. Like to me, Brawl is like the Wrath of God of Hearthstone at this stage, pretty much. Like you look at Twisting Nether, sure, it looks like the Wrath of God, but for all intents and purposes, a true control deck needs something like Brawl. Like they tried to make Light Bomb the Brawl of Priest, and it's gotta work to an extent. But like maybe the issue as well is AoE, like yes, it's quote unquote bad compared to some of the death rattles, but going back to the charge minions, um, like the fact that
Okay.
having like getting punished by having a board being vulnerable to AoE, like it kind of pushes you to play charge minions, and the only reaction to that from the controlled side is try to survive. And AoE in that case, yes, it's relevant, but you don't have a board to clear because you've already taken the damage coming in. Whether it's a combo deck OTKing you, your AoE is useless. Whether it's minions that stick, your AoE is useless. It's like the damage always pours in. Um,
I mean, there's a response to that too, though. There's taunt and healing, which there's a ton of in the
that's
game now. That's good. I think they
right.
could
Taunt.
use. I think we can use like better taunts, but I also think the main problem is the AOE. I think it's just the AOE sucks in the game because every AOE card basically makes you spend your entire turn to clear the board, and then you're just put in the same position next turn because Hearthstone is not like Magic, right? Like if you wipe your opponent's board, they're not gonna like top deck a land and be low on resources and out of stuff to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Magic, you clear their board, they draw for their turn, they play the rest of their hand, and if you have the second board clear, the game ends.
Yeah,
But
pretty
in
much.
Hearthstone, it's like you
Yeah.
clear the board and they just draw business every turn. There's never a skip draw step. Every card does stuff off the top, so they just
Mm-hmm. No,
yeah.
that's definitely a good point. Yeah.
The initiative matters more than anything. So yeah, I don't think eliminating all the burst combos is necessarily the right path. Like I wouldn't mind seeing Force of Nature, Savage Roar nerfed,
Yeah, me too.
but like down to 10 mana. But I also think that even if they removed it from the game completely, there would be like whatever burst combos left would still see play. Like the game fundamentally will always come down to burst finishes, you know. And
Yeah, I
a
find it
lot of
weird though that they try to bring in haste. Like I look at the charge mechanic and I feel like they just put it there because um it's kind of a standard thing in card games where you have like, oh, we have this rule, you can't attack when it comes in. Let's make a fun spin on it and make it so this minion can do it. But in Hearthstone, it's caused like so many issues. Uh like I almost just don't enjoy it too much because there's no difference between attacking with a charge minion and attacking with a non-charge minion. They can target the same stuff. The strength of them is usually a lot weaker, obviously. But as far as where the damage goes, you still get to like determine that. Like Ice Howl is a good charge minion to me. Like I like the design
Yeah,
of that guy
yeah, that's
because
a
he
good
can
point.
be used as removal, as opposed to, well, okay, I can either clear his stuff or go face.
like with that logic, why have spells in
Problematic.
the game? Like yeah, I mean it's hard to design
Why
like
have
a
spells that go face? I guess so.
no
Yeah,
because no, that's not what I mean. I mean why have
you can
spells?
play around
The
them
only
or something.
difference between spells and minions is the fact that spells have charge.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
I don't
you
know.
can't having a charge
You don't
mechanic
like
is
you don't mind
fine.
it?
Can you? How
Okay.
would you have designed a 350 card starting set? You just
Well, I
wouldn't
would
have
have designed it the
included.
same way. I'm not saying charge is like I would have done it differently because I would have probably put haste in the game. But like looking back at all the problems we've had, like I guess there are some charge minions that are like well designed because they're not posing problems. Like,
A lot of them are Druido
but yeah,
class.
most of them are fine. It's just like the few outliers usually, like the few problem cards usually have charge or involved in the kind of combo with charge from what we've seen, which led to the Warsong Commander being changed, starting Buzzard with Unleash,
Mm-hmm.
like a huge array of
Well, any of these kind of
defenses they
comboing that involves the charge and leaves your opponent basically helpless to that combo. I mean, we see it with Anyfin right now. Do you guys think Anyfin is broke? Like bad, broken at this point?
Yes,
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't like it.
it should probably not be in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shouldn't exist the way that it does by summoning the guaranteed Murlocs that you're looking for. Like it's not a Murloc card
Yeah.
at this stage. Like I'm sorry, it's just the only 5 Murlocs you'll ever see are the 5 that are played right now, and possibly you'll see some that buff attack if we get better ones, or some that give charge, or like I don't even know, or have Wind Fury,
Yeah.
but charge. It's like the only time you'll ever see Murlocs being played with this is when they kill you right away. So it's not a Murloc card as much as it's like a combo piece in and of itself. I don't like that very much.
I like that it opens up the door to a new type of paladin deck because paladin
Yeah,
didn't have a combo deck before, but I do think that it's just a one card Force of Nature combo, and we are very lucky that it doesn't have like one more good support card
Yeah.
because if the deck didn't have to play trash like Acolyte of Pain, it would actually be just the best deck in the game. It's like very dangerous.
Would it be better if it was a legend card? Like you can only have one of them?
Yeah. If it was like a 9-mana legend, it would be. It would eliminate the combo deck because you need 2 copies.
Yeah, the first one's never that bad. It's usually in that 10.
But I mean, when I play that deck, I mean there is like half the matchups in the game. When the game just starts, I'm just like, okay, I can't lose. And like, I play against Freeze Mage, I can't lose. It's like so many decks that that deck is dangerous as hell.
Yeah, it's auto win against a lot. Yeah, like that's to your point. Yeah, it's a fun deck though. It's definitely cool, innovative, but yeah, I feel like there's some tweaks that need to be made to it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Entomb trap, really. Like I view it as just like it's a design limiting card that's going to eventually just need a counter, and when you need a counter, then you have to start changing the cards involved in it. And you know, it's kind of funny, like when I see that card, like cards like these come out, because I feel like at this stage, Blizzard would be very cautious about releasing charge minions, like, or any type of effect that could be abused with charge. But like that one slipped through, kind of unnoticed, I guess. Or
it's funny, nobody nobody, you know, initially, right, when that card's being reviewed, everybody thought it was totally gimmicky, right? And when,
yeah,
I think for the most part, right, seeing that actually become viable is always an interesting process, but still too powerful. All right, guys. Well, why don't we do some Q&A for those of you that haven't gotten a chance to ask your question? You can post your question on Twitter at ValueTownGG, and we'll start reading a few of these out, and then we'll call it a day. Let's see. Got a question here. Oh, actually, where was it? Okay, Alex Panito asks, what are your thoughts on Blizzard adding cards to a card pool instead of changing current cards in order to help balance the game? I think that's generally what they do, right? They don't change very many cards anymore.
They don't really, at least. They try to avoid doing it. So, I mean, it kind of goes back to what we talked about.
I would be super okay with them doing that, like with them releasing cards and just never changing a card, if they actually released cards more often than like every 4 months.
Yep, exactly. Once that release content was faster.
Once that content comes out, it gets digested within like 2 weeks or whatever. Or if they spread it out, it's adventures. I can't even begin to express how much I hate adventures, but whatever.
Yeah, it's like a full content release, like 30 to 50 cards. And like 5 of them are viable, so it's just a lot of the.
That's not just that, but then you have the one like weak wing that has like all the bad cards, and it's just
like, you do nothing for that week.
That's
so it's
true.
like also taking out so much space.
For League of Explorers, we had a week of unplayable cards where it was like surf.
I have to agree with that. Yeah.
And then they took a week off for holidays, and then we waited another week, and then the next it was like a 3-week break.
Trogs or something came up
during the holidays where everyone wants to play Hearthstone.
Yeah, I hear you.
I got some spare time.
Blizzard,
not play Hearthstone.
Yeah, you know, Blizzard. You know, they decided to stop the Overwatch beta during the holidays too. So maybe it's just a Blizzard thing.
So you wait 4 months for new content, and then you get like a teaser of it like 1 week with like 3 cards that matter.
That's true.
Oh god. Yeah, I actually didn't play any Hearthstone until everything was released. I know a lot of people did, but with LOE, I basically didn't play it from day 1 of release to the very end. I just I did the adventures, I unlocked the cards, but I didn't make a deck with them. It was basically like the lowest time I spent in the game, even including like the patron era, which I wasn't too fond of. But it was really weird. Like
really okay. I mean, I felt like they opened with Reno, right? So I feel like they shouldn't have opened with Reno. They should have waited a little bit, like, you know, just tease people with some and then give them Reno, because everybody was looking forward to trying that out. But when that 1 week just had Reno, it was kind of cool. It was kind of cool just to see how it affected, or how just what kind of decks people built.
Yeah, but then like 4 weeks, like you have to wait 4 weeks before you figure out what the metagame is even gonna look like post-expansion. Like it takes you so long before you get to the point where anything you make is relevant long term. And so I feel like a lot of players might be just not very interested or engaged during that like the entire release process.
It's definitely hard to throw an event during that. You know what I mean? Because it's completely short term as to what's what kind of deck ends up being or possibly winning that tournament. So yeah, I see your point. I definitely see your point with that. Okay, let's see. Okay, we got a lot of them on Twitter now. Okay, Pleasurable Pain asks, "Hey guys, do you think a stream for beginner Hearthstone players to watch would be a good idea, or become popular?" Grill streamer.
What? Sorry.
So, do you think a beginner Hearthstone player type of, I guess, stream, or she just says, "Do you think a stream for beginner Hearthstone players to watch would be a good idea or become popular?" I think just the streams right now are good for beginners, right? I mean, unless you're talking about free to play, like would there be a free to play type of stream?
There have been some in the past. I feel like for YouTube, it's more relevant.
Yeah,
that type of like content for new players, because a stream for new players would have to like D rank all the time just to get like the basics down, or you don't play with the big cards because, like as you said, free to play, or you don't play epics or a very limited amount of them. Maybe like a pauper stream could be nice. You know, low rarity stream. The guy never plays with anything beyond rares.
That's true. Yeah. I think you're right about the YouTube videos. I think that's the best resource. And for a regular stream to be popular, I don't know. I don't think it could become very popular, but it's like once you get to a certain point, right? Then you're not a beginner anymore, and then you kind of move on, right?
People don't go to Twitch to learn. That's all I have to say. Like,
what do you mean? They give best
Some people
educational streamers every year for those awards, right? So what do you mean they don't go to learn?
Oh, you're right.
Of course they do.
Sorry about that, man. I forgot. Reynad, how did you rank on that educational streamer tier? How'd you do?
I mean, were you nominated for that? I think you were, right? You were.
2014. My stream caught on in like December 25th, and then the award was like a month later.
Feels bad,
I lost to
probably Trump
or something.
Probably Trump. Yeah.
No, it was Crip.
Really, Crip?
Crip won every
Crip is a teacher in disguise.
Crip won every category. Oh man.
The title of the category just matters who the nominees are. Yeah. And whoever has the most fans at the time wins. Like, all those online award things are fucking joke.
Votes for you. And the funny thing is, like, they get paid for that, right? Like,
Forsen was on the esports icon thing, and you're right. The person, like the nominee, gets paid. You know,
that's what I found ridiculous. Like, I saw the list and I was like, this is great. You know, people can vote for this stuff. It's community engagement. Then I look at the fact that they're getting paid for this, and I'm like, what? No, you've got to be kidding me. Like, this is the most.
Well, what it turned into is just like,
I don't know. It's just.
I mean, what it turned into is just like, oh, everybody just linking the voting, you know what I mean? It was totally who had the most followers and things.
It was funny.
Not really funny, but it was more lame. It was more lame than funny, honestly.
Yeah, but, I don't know. I laughed.
Okay, next up, what do you think? Justin Mann asks, what do you think of changing Arena to where you draft 60 cards and then build a 30 card deck from those 60 drafted?
All the decks would look the same, and the bad cards would never see play. So it's like
pretty much.
There's a good balance where you want the bad cards to see play sometimes. Like that's a cool moment when like corruption or something is good. Or like somebody, angry chicken goes off or something. It's like part of what makes limited formats fun. But I maybe like draft 33 cards or something. You could see that
33 to 35. Yeah.
Okay, here, this is kind of a different question. Lita bot, I don't know if she actually bought or not, but with a high interest in better bots for Dota 2, do you think it is a good idea for... Oh, no, this is a different question. All right, next up, Ryan Morrison. How terrible is Control Hunter with Elise and tracking?
Very.
The what?
How terrible is Control Hunter with Elise and tracking?
How terrible is Control Hunter? You could have stopped there.
Yeah, exactly, right.
How terrible is
when is that going to be viable? When is Control Hunter going to be viable?
When they get a way to actually get spell damage on their shots for all the cards in their deck. Like that, like you can't have that card, like that don't go face. They have to have like minion and like an incentive to draw without getting face damage. Because the moment you give them the ability to choose, like Cobra Shot, right? Like it's a ridiculous card because we look at it now.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, this is exactly the type of card that, like, design-wise, that you'd like to be able to play. The only issue is because it deals damage to face, like, and that much of it, Blizzard can't keep increasing the numbers. Like, if it's omni-targetable, then you can't give it to hunters anymore. And if it, oh my god, if it allows you to draw into that phase damage, then you also can't give it to them anymore. Like, it's reached the point, like, hunters have reached a point where they need very specialized tools to become control heavy.
I think they just need more spells. Just encourage you to build different types of decks. Like lock and load will be broken at some point down the line. It's gonna take time, but like it will be a good card. You know, just more cards like Clockwork No and stuff have to come out. More 1-mana hunter spells, but yeah, like
removal spells. Or what type of spells? Because surely not phase spells, right?
Phase spells and removal spells are the same thing. Like
oh, true. I mean, the more
depending exactly, yeah, pretty much.
Just
traps.
Playable cards. People have this like misconception where they like think it matters what cards do in Hearthstone. They're like, oh, what does a card have to do to make this class good? It's like it doesn't matter. You just make it undercosted and stupidly overpowered, and
it'll be played. Yeah.
Better. Like that's all it needs. It's just broken cards.
I like the 1-mana 5/5 that spawns a 5/5 beast. That's a pretty cool one.
Right, yeah, right. Yeah, that would make Hunter pretty damn good, huh? The problem is you need to design a card that's broken, but like only in one type of Hunter deck. So like like that card you described, like a 1-mana 5/5, yes, control it would make control Hunter better, but it would also make face Hunter better.
Yeah,
you need a card that's
Hunter
like
better.
you need a card that's broken only in control Hunter, right? So you know, something
the
that's
mana worm
like,
of hunters, basically. Like something along those lines.
Destroy a minion. Your opponent gains 5 life or 10 life.
Yeah, that's actually a really cool card. Like it's broken, but it would push.
It's
like,
also not flavorful.
It might make Rich Rain Hunter too good though.
Yeah,
it doesn't fit Hunter, so you have to do it different. Like maybe like I don't know. Yeah, I think 2 mana destroy a minion. Your opponent gains like 10 life, something ridiculous.
Like, we got a couple questions about Shaman here. One's first off, Brody Quest asks, "Do you think mid-range Shaman can work right now?" I tried a modified Gara list, and it is right now ranked 3 through 5, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ray. Pick that one up.
What's up?
Mid-range Shaman.
Pick that question up.
How far off from being good?
It could be it needs an expansion or two. Like right now, the best Shaman decks are. Like, look, okay, you know the whole aggro shaman like package of let's play every burn spell, lava shock, tunnel shock.
Yeah, the one that was really popular.
I've noticed you can combine that package with like so many wildly different decks. Like personally, I like Unbound, and like I don't play Leper Gnomes or anything, so it's just kind of like an Overload theme deck.
Yeah, that's fun.
But I also like Malagos, like the Malagos variant. You want to play 2 Doomhammer anyway, so you can like that whole aggro shaman shell still fits with a Malagos deck. So
is that it's an Ancestor Call Malagos or just straight? Okay, I wasn't sure if it was a different one.
Yeah, because you play all the burn anyway, so you add 1 Malagos, 1 Ancestor's Call, and you're good to go.
It's kind of like what you were talking about. Like you give a class undercosted tools that do a lot of work and they're versatile. Let's say in the case of shaman spells, most of them just go anywhere you want them. So for all intents and purposes, you have like this crazy array of spells that either kills stuff or kills the opponent, and then you could build a deck around that. So for all you could build any type of shaman with that like idea in mind. You were asking what it takes to make Control Hunter viable. I don't think you want to take that approach. Like I don't think that's an approach I'd like. Like redundancy and card effect, like Lava Burst, Crackle, Bolt, they kind of all do the same thing. They're just differently costed. I think at some point that becomes kind of like, because too much of the same stuff, it's not that it's boring, it's just that it risks being broken a bit too easily. Because when you get like, I don't know, like 5 Blade Flurries or 5 Deadly Poisons in Rogue, like
I mean, I agree with you there. Right? I don't think they should print cards like Crackle that Dark Bomb. They shouldn't make cards like that ever again. They should have like League of Explorers is a great example of like how Blizzard learned. Like they're getting better basically at designing cards, you know, like something like Reno you're not going to play in every Warlock deck. You're just going to play in like a defensive one, a very specific type of Warlock deck where it's a broken card. Like that's good design, you know. You want the cards that you print to be very good in specific archetypes.
Yeah,
you know, lock and load. You're not just going to throw into a face hunter deck. You're going to build a deck around it. Like the more cards they design like that, the better. And ideally, the less crackles we have.
Yeah, yeah.
Where you just
Yep.
play it because not only do you just play it because it's good at what it does, but it's only good at what it does 75% of the time.
Yeah, no, agreed. It's been sounding like just I don't know, just some tweets and just seeing some things on Reddit, just even some people guessing, based on historical releases of expansions. But there's been talk that people are thinking that the next expansion should be coming out, I don't know, fairly soon, sometime in the next month, maybe even the next 2 or 3 weeks. People are thinking. Swaglord asks, what are your expectations for the new Hearthstone extension? I mean, Ray, you might actually know something, so I know you might have to avoid stuff. But what do you think is? I know. What do you think the focus will be, or what would you like to see?
I would like to see another set with lots of playable cards that are very specific to specific archetypes, like League of Explorers. I think League was like feedback across the board. Everyone was really happy with that set. And,
Yeah.
But when they revealed Crackle, everyone was upset. Even in the Reddit post, people saw the problem with cards like that. So I think Blizzard reads from those things and understands. They've gotten way better at designing cards. Basically, some cards won't go away, like Knife Juggler, like Haunted Creeper, like Implosion. But the new cards they're introducing are very good design, I think. So
okay.
I don't really care what the theme should be or anything, as long as it's continues to be good design. But yeah, dude, I wish I knew what this set was. I have no idea. League of Explorers,
really? Okay.
The League of Explorers I saw a month and a half or something before it came out, all the cards. But for this set, I have no idea.
Okay. Sounds like Strife Crow might be the only person that knows something.
No, that's from a tournament thing. It's not.
That'll
be revealed tomorrow.
Thing. Okay, tomorrow.
Yeah.
I saw Frodian say something too. Was that related? Maybe that's related.
Yeah, that will actually be super cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, actually, Noxious, what are you looking for?
I don't know, man. Just the ability to have. Well, I mean, I guess as Reynad said, playables that encourage specific archetypes, and also things that make decks, make classes less unidimensional, I guess. Because you look at, let's say, Paladin, right? They've got so many archetypes. You could say Paladin is not a single deck when you think about it now. You can make the Murloc Pally, you can have the mid-range Pally, which you don't see much anymore, Secret Pally, Ebola Pally. You've got so many types of Paladin decks. And on the other hand, I'm looking at Priest. I'm like, yeah, okay, we got Dragon Priest and we got Control Priest. We have 2 decks there. But it still plays the Dragon Priest plays in a very, I don't want to say boring, but I find it boring. I think it's the most
linear.
boring deck in
It's
the
pretty
game
linear,
by a long shot. It's just so. It feels like I'm playing Druid without Innervate many times. And without the burst. So I don't like it very much. All these classes, like Warrior, what have they got? Okay, Control Warrior. What's next?
Patron's so good.
So Belcher. Yeah, but there's so few. It's getting wider and wider, but I just want more cards that enable this variety in classes. Like an Aggro Priest is the go-to example that I take. Control Shaman would be great. I'd love to see something on the very polarized side of Control.
Okay.
I don't know. It'd be cool to see that.
Do you think, though, that it's impossible to guess the theme of this upcoming set? Because they started with just taking WoW raids or something, and porting them, making them a little more cartoony, but then League of Explorers came out of nowhere. They created characters, they created a storyline, and it's loosely based on the World of Warcraft universe. But that just shows that it's entirely up in the air. It's Team 5's decision, entirely what they can just make a world, basically.
It's gonna be the Twisting Nether expansion. It's gonna be super heavy, bunch of Warlock demons, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, theme wise, I don't actually care either way, but I would like to see.
I'm calling it.
I would like to see an improvement to the Inspire mechanic, something where it's used. You know what I mean? Just at least some card is used that has the Inspire mechanic. Sure. And then Rogue would be cool. I think the Rogue with the Death Rather Raptor and stuff was a good start to something, that I'm hoping they'll extend upon in the next one. And then even Battlecry Like, we do see some brand, but we don't see the crowd favorite and things like that. We see people trying to do like shamans, battle cry shamans, and things like that. It'd be kind of cool if they added or gave some more tools to that type of build too, just to see how it could end up. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to.
I do actually agree with you there. I wish they would go back and revisit old expansion themes and add to them, because like mech is a good example for me. Like I would like to see more mech cards, and you can't just make like insane neutral 2-drop mechs, obviously, because that would push them over the top. But it's kind of lame that like it was a theme that was pushed so much in GVG, and then a couple of expansions later, we've only gotten like Clockwork Knight and Gorilla Bot, and like Gorilla Bot's fine, but we have.
I think it also has to do with your idea earlier, right? Of pushing content like every week or every 2 weeks. Like you just release a new card here and there. Like, oh, cool. Here we have a new mech. Here we have a new demon, a new whatever it is, a new Murloc, and we don't have to try to weave it in that whole expansion. So occasionally you'd have like very specialized focused cards being released, and maybe punctually you'll have people attempting to make those work. So I really want them to go for that sporadic release content.
It'd be interesting to be like, I don't know how the design is divvied up at this point, because the team is so big, but it would be kind of interesting to be in that release room, like when they're deciding like what cards to release, and you see all these designers probably fighting for their cards to be released because they don't want to wait like another 3 to 6 months to have their cards released. I wonder if it's that type of process.
Of course it is, dude. Gazrilla came out because somebody wanted to push it, and then somebody was like, all right, but I get to make Hemet.
Oh my God.
Obviously the way it works, right?
I guess so.
Well,
all right.
Person
What's
does not like the community very much.
I guess not.
Hemet could have been anything else, man.
Yeah.
If it silence the beast, at least like silence and destroy, like that could occasionally be playable, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Hemet costs like 4.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. BGH to 3 and this guy to 4.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for writing in your questions. Again, that's the Twitter account we're going to be using for ValueTown GG. So follow that, and we'll be releasing all the ValueTown news and from that account more so than mine. But I think that's going to be it for the show. Oh, I didn't even plug the Patreon this time, guys. There's a Patreon for the show, patreon.com/ValueTown.
Yep.
Check that out. There's lots of good rewards and milestones and all that good stuff. Really appreciate all the current patrons, which we showed during the break. You guys are awesome. But why don't we do some shout outs and call it a show? Noxious, you want to start us off?
Yeah, shout out to Soylent and Amino, my 2 current sponsors for the stream, the biggest ones, and Complexity as well, for backing me up and being, I guess, with me for so long.
All right, Ray?
Amino or Ameno?
Amino.
Amino.
Reynad's like, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Any shout outs?
Yeah, shout out to the viewers. Thanks for hanging out, guys. It's cool to see you guys being on board the show. We're trying new things. We want to make it more entertaining for you. So, shout out to Chris for just everyone. It's going to be improving. Make sure you guys tune in next week as well. Shout out to Tempo, of course. Everyone on the team, all that. Gonna be a cool announcement tomorrow. I hope they keep pushing it back.
It's supposed to be in the morning, guys. In the morning tomorrow.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I'm excited for that. And that's pretty much all I got.
All right, my shout outs, just a big shout out to the 2 of you guys, Noxious and Ray, for doing the show with me every week, and all the viewers too for coming and watching. I know we weren't here last week, but we're gonna be doing every week here on out. And like Ray mentioned, we are gonna. You can tell we've kind of changed things up and mentioned it in a video, but just for those of you just tuning in for the first time, we're gonna have more topic-oriented discussions, and even just have some episodes that are specific to a certain part of our industry, whether it's like content making or it's casting or things like that. So expect a lot more of these type of shows. We kind of including more people in the community, not just players, but we'll still be doing the player things, of course. I mean, we're never going to get away from that altogether, but just wanted to include everything from the standpoint of Hearthstone. There's such a beautiful space we've got, and there's a lot of people involved. Let's see. VODs are going to be available. YouTube.com/ChanManV. Definitely check that out. A big shout out to sponsors, my Tempo Storm for sponsoring the show, and their sponsors Twitch and G2A also. And for those of you that like the audios or listen to the show on your iPhones or whatever, the audios will be available on iTunes tomorrow. It usually gets updated on the refresh, but on the audio feed, which I always send out, it's going to be available probably a little bit later today too. So definitely check that out. And if you do check it out on iTunes, be sure to rate it. Only if you like it. Don't rate it if you don't like it. All right. Only rate it if you like it. Leave a comment, because that helps with SEO for the show. So definitely do that. That's going to be it, guys, for Value Town this week. So for Noxious,